My name's Shelley Gray, I'm 34, and I work as a software engineer in Charleston. Every Sunday, I sit at our family's dinner table, wearing a polite smile while my bank balance quietly drains that I've covered my parents' mortgage, paid for my brother's car repairs, even footed the bill for his dog's vet visits. That's how it's always been, me paying them assuming it's owed. But last Sunday, everything shifted at my brother waltzed in 20 minutes late, grinning like he was the guest of honor. Then he dropped his latest bombshell. I'm out of work. I just need 50 grand to start a coffee shop. I'll pay you back, promise. I'd heard that line before. Too many times that my stomach knotted, memories flashing of the thousands I'd lent him. Money that vanished like smoke. Did I look to Mom and Dad, hoping they'd finally speak up? Instead, they turned toward me, eyes full of expectation. You'll help him, won't you? Mom said, her voice leaving no room for refusal. That I tightened my grip on my fork, heart pounding. His promises meant nothing anymore, and I was finished being their personal bank. No, I said, calm, clear, final. The room froze. Dad's face flushed crimson. How dare you? He barked. I met his glare. Why shouldn't I say no? That's when it began, the battle I didn't start but was ready to finish. What came next turned my world upside down. Even now, I'm still trying to piece together what was left. Stick around to find out how it all spiraled. And if you've ever been caught in a family storm like this, drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your story. Hit like if you've ever had to choose between love and self-respect. Let's dive into the chaos together. When I was a kid, I learned the family rule early. Spencer gets the praise, I get the pressure. Our Charleston home buzzed with unspoken expectations, and I carried nearly all of them. Spencer, a few years younger, could do no wrong. Mom and Dad showered him with shiny new toys, a remote control car, a skateboard, a guitar he never practiced. That he'd break them, lose interest, move on, and they'd just buy him more. I'd watch Mom hand him fresh bills for sneakers while I stood at the sink, scrubbing dishes until my hands stung. Their wallets were always tight for me, yet endless for him. He needs support, they'd say, as if I didn't. All I ever wanted were books, science manuals, coding guides, anything that fueled my dream of building software. Mom would shrug. You're responsible. You'll figure it out. And I did. I took a paper route, pedaling through Charleston's thick summer air to earn every dollar. I hid my books beneath my bed, terrified Spencer would destroy them like everything else. When I began tutoring classmates to save for a computer, Mom took half my pay to buy Spencer a new jacket. He's growing fast, she said, ignoring my clenched fists. My grades climbed, but Dad barely looked at my report cards. Spencer's C- earned him a pat on the back, and a new Walkman. One Christmas stands out like a bruise. Spencer got the gaming console every kid dreamed of. He played it once, left it on the floor, and when it broke, Mom rounded on me. Why didn't you share yours? She demanded, as if I'd caused it. I hadn't even touched his mine. The one I'd bought after months of saving tip money was locked safely in my drawer. Sharing with Spencer meant losing what I'd earned, so I learned to swallow my anger and hide the sting of being invisible. Another summer, Spencer went off to a fancy camp, hiking, bonfires, lakeside cabins. I stayed home, scrubbing floors and cooking dinners. Spencer needs experiences, Dad said while I ironed his shirts. At a tea night, I'd lie awake wondering why my best never seemed enough. By 16, I'd become the family's silent provider. When Dad forgot to pay the power bill, I covered it. When the faucet leaked, I fixed it. When groceries ran out, I stocked the fridge. No one thanked me. It was simply expected. Meanwhile, Spencer was busy piling up debts at the arcade, and Mom would just sigh. He's finding his way, she'd say softly, as if irresponsibility were a phase to outgrow. I was the one holding everything together, but no one ever noticed that I taught myself to swallow the hurt, to keep moving forward even when their indifference cut deep. But each ignored effort, each unpaid debt, planted quiet resentment that grew with every chore and every dollar I handed over. Years later, when a tech company in Austin offered me a promotion, I didn't tell a soul that I already knew how it would play out. Mom would guilt me into staying. Spencer needs you here. Dad would grunt something about family obligations. They had built their comfort on my shoulders and assumed I'd carry it forever. I wasn't just their daughter. I was their ATM, their fixer, their invisible support beam. Even as a child, I'd felt the pressure of their unfairness shaping my future. All those lessons about being the responsible one clung to me long after I grew up, and so did Spencer's empty promises. One afternoon, I sat in my Charleston apartment staring at my bank statement. The numbers stared back like accusations each. Transaction a bruise.my balance was bleeding. $200 for Spencer's car repair. $300 to cover mom and dad's overdue power bill. $150 for the plumber when their pipes burst. I scrolled down the list, feeling my chest tighten. Every charge was a silent agreement to keep saving them at my expense. But how much longer could I afford to play savior? I'd poured my savings into their lives, and not one of them blinked. My mind drifted back to 2 years earlier, when Spencer had cornered me in a coffee shop. I need $5,000 for a trip to California, he'd said, eyes bright with fake determination. It's a networking opportunity. I'll pay you back in a month. I wired the money, hoping foolishly that this time he meant it. That networking trip turned into bar tabs, beach photos, and empty promises. Then there was the time he begged for $2,000 for a new phone. It's for my side hustle, he swore, hand over heart. I sent the money, believing maybe this was his turning point. He bought the phone, posted selfies, and ignored every text about repayment. His promises were like smoke. They shimmered for a moment, then disappeared. Still, I kept helping. I told myself it was for the family, to keep us united. I wanted mom to look at me with pride, not dependence. I wanted dad to see me as more than a paycheck. Each dollar I handed over felt like another thread, tying me to them. Or so I believed. Deep down I hoped they'd eventually love me, not my money. That afternoon I met my friend Diane at a small cafe downtown. She sipped her latte, scrolling through her phone. "Spencer's out of control," she said flatly, showing me his latest post, a designer leather jacket tagged from a boutique. "He's got no shame." I stirred my coffee slowly, avoiding her gaze. Diane wasn't judging, but I wasn't ready to hear the truth. I changed the subject to work, trying to bury the guilt. Still, her words echoed long after, prodding at the doubts I'd worked so hard to silence. That evening my phone buzzed. It was Mom. "We need you to cover Shadow's pet insurance," she said briskly. "It's just a few hundred. Family responsibility." Shadow, Spencer's dog. The same one whose vet bills I'd already paid the year before. I clenched my jaw. "Why can't Spencer take care of it?" I asked. Mom exhaled sharply like I was being dramatic. "He's going through a lot, Shelley. Don't make things harder." Her words hit like a slap, turning me into the villain for even asking. I hung up and opened the joint account I'd created years ago, for emergencies. It was my money, my safety net, but they treated it as community property. A wave of doubt washed over me. Why was I still allowing this? The thought of cutting them off made my stomach twist. What if they couldn't manage without me? What if walking away made me the bad guy? I swallowed the fear and left the account open. I wasn't ready to break free, not yet, but that phone call and those numbers glaring from my screen were the first cracks in the wall of loyalty I'd built around myself. 2 weeks later, the dining room in Charleston flickered with candlelight that night, shadows dancing across the walls as if the house itself held its breath. Sunday dinners had always felt like obligation, but this one carried the heaviness of a storm about to break. Spencer sat across from me, flashing that easy grin that never reached his eyes. Mom passed the mashed potatoes, her smile stretched too thin, while Dad focused on carving the roast, his silence doing all the talking. Tracy, Spencer's girlfriend, filled the air with chatter about her new job, her voice slicing through the tension like a dull knife. I pushed my food around the plate, my mind tallying up the thousands I'd poured into their lives. Car repairs, electric bills, vet visits, every favor they'd conveniently forgotten. I could already sense what was coming next. Spencer leaned back in his chair, cleared his throat, and said it as casually as if he were announcing the weather. "Got fired. But it's fine, I've got a plan. I just need $50,000 to open a coffee shop. It's a sure thing. I'll pay you back, promise." His eyes locked onto mine, confident, expectant. My fork froze halfway to my mouth. Every unpaid promise flashed through my mind. $5,000 for that California trip, $2,000 for his side hustle. None of it ever came back. I set the fork down. "I can't trust your promises anymore, Spencer," I said evenly, the words cutting through the air like glass. The silence that followed was suffocating. Dad's knife slipped from his hand, clattering against the plate. "How dare you?" he thundered, the table shaking under his fist. "He's trying to build something." Mom's eyes narrowed, her voice sharp as a blade. "After everything we've done for you, you're really going to turn your back on your brother?" Their words hit me like punches, twisting the truth until I was the villain. Tracy smirked, her tone dripping with disdain. You're so uptight. Maybe if you understood ambition, you'd get it. I turned to her, a stranger sitting at my family table, judging me for sacrifices she couldn't begin to comprehend. Ambition, I said quietly, my voice steady even as anger burned in my chest. I've been funding his ambitions for years. That cracked the dam. Mom shot up from her chair, accusing me of tearing the family apart. Dad barked something about ingratitude. Spencer just shrugged, like my refusal was nothing more than a minor inconvenience. That I pushed my chair back, the screech loud enough to silence them all. I'm done, I said, standing. Their voices chased me down the hall as I grabbed my coat, but I didn't look back. I walked out, slamming the door behind me, my pulse hammering in my ears. For the first time in years, I wasn't the one fixing things outside. The night air was cold, clean, almost freeing. When I reached my car, my phone buzzed. A message from Aunt Frances lit up the screen. Help your family. It's the only way to find peace. I stared at it for a long moment, thumb hovering over the reply button. She didn't understand. None of them did. I deleted the message, tossed the phone onto the passenger seat, and drove off into the dark. The voices faded behind me, but the weight of what had just happened clung tight, a breaking point years in the making. The next morning, I woke to the buzz of my phone again, a bank alert. Half asleep, I opened the app, expecting a routine update, and then my stomach dropped. The joint family account, my supposed emergency fund, was nearly empty. 3 withdrawals glared back at me like accusations. $2000 marked mom. $1,500 marked dad. $3,000 marked Spencer. No texts. No calls. No permission. They had taken the money without hesitation, as if it had always been theirs. My hands shook as I scrolled through the transactions, each one a betrayal in numbers. I dialed mom first. Why did you take $2,000 without asking? Her tone was sharp, defensive. You're so ungrateful, she snapped. We needed it for house repairs. You owe us after everything we've done for you. Her words hit harder than I expected. Twisting my years of sacrifice into some kind of debt, I called Dad next. His voice was thick with anger. You're destroying this family, he barked. We count on that money. I stared at my phone, disbelief washing over me. They didn't see me as a daughter anymore, just a lifeline, a bank account with a pulse. Then I called Spencer. It's our money, Spencer said, his voice dripping with smug certainty. You just handle it. The words hit like a slap, humiliation burning through me. My savings. My late nights. Every sacrifice I'd made to keep them afloat. None of it meant a thing to him. I hung up, my chest tight, anger and clarity crashing together in one sharp wave. I wasn't their servant anymore. That afternoon I drove straight to the bank, my resolve hardening with every step I took. I froze the debit card linked to our shared account, canceled every automatic transfer, and closed it for good. No more mortgage payments for mom and dad. No more rescue funds for Spencer's chaos. When I logged in to cancel the utilities I'd been covering for their house, my hands didn't shake, they were steady. Each click felt like breaking a chain I dragged for years. This wasn't just about cutting them off. It was about reclaiming the life they'd quietly taken piece by piece. That evening my phone buzzed with a message from Ian, my boyfriend. You're not their bank, he wrote. You deserve better. Simple words but solid. A reminder I wasn't alone. I replied with a quick thank you, my chest a little lighter knowing someone finally saw me for who I was, not what I could give. Ian didn't need to shout his support. His quiet understanding was enough to keep me steady. The next morning Diane stopped by my office at the firm, radiating her usual energy. I finally moved into my new apartment, she said, scrolling through photos on her phone. The view's incredible. And wait till you see the kitchen. I smiled, grateful for a taste of normalcy. She didn't mention my family mess and I didn't either. Talking about paint swatches and furniture was a welcome break. Proof there was a world beyond the chaos I'd been living in. When she left, I felt something spark. A small flame of determination to build something just for me. No strings attached. 3 days later, before sunrise, my phone lit up with a flood of notifications. The dim light of the screen sliced through the quiet of my Charleston apartment. Half awake, I opened it, and my stomach turned. Spencer had posted a photo of Shadow, his dog, looking pitiful with wide, sad eyes. The caption read, "My sister's so selfish. She's abandoned us." Within minutes, the comments piled up. Strangers calling me cold-hearted, distant relatives I hadn't seen in years chiming in with judgment. Even an old classmate adding fake sympathy for Spencer. It was deliberate. A manipulative move using an innocent dog to make me the villain. My chest ached with a mix of hurt and fury. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, itching to expose every unpaid debt, every broken promise. But I stopped myself. Responding would only feed his story. Instead, I blocked him. Everywhere. Social media, messages, all of it. When I hit that final block button, it felt like shutting a door he'd been slamming open for years. By noon, another notification appeared. A long text from Mom. Each word cut like glass. You've torn this family apart. Spencer's hurting. You owe him an apology for your selfishness. I read it twice, my throat tightening. Not one word about the years I'd carried their bills, the nights I'd worked overtime, or the sacrifices I'd made to hold us together. It had never been about gratitude, only expectation. I looked around my apartment, eyes landing on the family photos lining the wall. Smiles that hid exhaustion. Laughter that had always cost me something. I took a slow breath, then blocked Mom's number, and Dad's right after. The silence that followed was heavy but clean, a silence that belonged to me. That afternoon I focused on what came next. Sitting at my kitchen table, I signed the offer letter for a lead software engineer position in Austin, a role I'd earned through years of grinding, not guilt. The pen didn't tremble. Each stroke felt like a promise to myself. Austin wasn't just a new city. It was a fresh start. Miles away from Charleston's web of guilt and obligation. I began packing that night, pulling clothes from hangers and folding them into boxes. The apartment, with its creaky floors and faded wallpaper, had been my safe place once. But now it was just a stop on the road to freedom. I sorted through old books, keepsakes, and little trinkets, deciding what was worth keeping and what could finally be left behind. Every decision felt like peeling off another layer of the past, stripping away the expectations that had kept me bound to my family's needs. That evening, Ian showed up with 2 cups of steaming coffee and a roll of packing tape. His calm energy filled the apartment, anchoring me in the middle of the storm I'd been weathering. He didn't ask about the betrayal or the bank account. He just started sealing boxes, stacking them neatly by the door. As we sorted through pots, pans, and my collection of mismatched mugs, he paused, eyes meeting mine. "You deserve a life that's yours," he said softly, his voice steady. "Not one built around them." The words landed like a lifeline, tugging me out of the guilt that still clung to the edges of my heart. I nodded, a faint smile breaking through as we kept packing, the sound of tape pulling and boxes sliding becoming its own quiet rhythm of reassurance. Ian's faith in me felt like permission to stop apologizing for wanting something better. The next morning, I packed my laptop, the one I'd bought with my own earnings, not theirs. As I slid it into its case, flashes of the past flickered. Spencer's post, Mom's bitter text, Dad's silence. They'd shown me exactly who they were. I didn't need their approval anymore. Walking through my apartment, I opened each drawer and closet one last time, checking for anything left behind. The emptiness didn't feel lonely. It felt like space, room for something new to begin. Austin wasn't just another job. It was a reset, a chance to rewrite who I was without their shadows trailing me. I sealed the final box, my hand steady with purpose. When Ian lifted the heaviest one, his quiet strength was a sharp contrast to the chaos I'd left behind. My phone stayed silent. No more buzzing demands, no more guilt wrapped in obligation. The silence was pure relief, like sunlight breaking through after a storm. I wasn't escaping, I was finally walking towards something that belonged to me. We shut the trunk, and I turned back to glance at the building one last time. The faded brick glowed in the morning light, soft and distant. The road to Austin stretched out ahead, open, endless, and for the first time I was ready. The Austin skyline shimmered beneath the Texas sun. I stood on the balcony of my new apartment, a sleek high-rise with tall windows and a view that felt infinite, breathing in the air of freedom. My first week as a lead software engineer had been a whirlwind. Sprint meetings, code reviews, brainstorming sessions where people actually listened. For the first time in years, I woke up without dread. No waiting for calls, no guilt for unanswered texts. Austin pulsed with energy, vibrant streets, creative minds, a hum of possibility that made Charleston feel a world away. I sipped my coffee, letting the warmth settle in. The quiet wasn't empty anymore. It was mine. That afternoon, Diane texted as I settled into my new office. "Hey, the new project's kicking off next week. You ready to lead back end? I smiled, grateful for her steady focus, business, not drama. She didn't ask about my family and I didn't offer. The project, a cloud app for a local startup, was my clean slate. Proof that I belonged here on my own terms. Absolutely, I typed back, excitement buzzing at my fingertips. A few days later, an email from an old neighbor in Charleston slipped through. Spencer's dream, the coffee shop he'd once begged me to fund, had fallen apart before it even opened. Without my money, he'd lost the lease, couldn't afford the equipment. Now he was waiting tables, barely scraping by. The news didn't shock me, but it did sting. A ghost of all the dreams I'd financed, watching them crumble from afar. For a moment, pity flickered. Then it faded. Spencer's choices were his own. I'd finally stopped carrying the cost of them. The same email mentioned my parents, too. They'd sold the family house, the one I'd helped keep standing when the mortgage slipped through their fingers. Now they were in a small apartment on Charleston's outskirts, juggling bills and living off what little was left. I pictured Mom, her once crisp tone worn thin with worry, and Dad, hiding behind his paper, pretending everything was fine. Their downfall wasn't my doing. It was the consequence of years of taking without giving back. Their dependence on me was clear, but I felt no guilt. I'd already given enough, my savings, my time, my peace. I found out later that Tracy had left Spencer soon after his business collapsed. She walked away once the debt stacked up, leaving him to face the collectors alone. I could picture her stuffing clothes into a suitcase, those sharp words from dinner echoing in my head. "You're too rigid to get ambition," now sounding hollow. Spencer's charm could no longer mask his failures, and Tracy decided to cut her losses. I didn't feel triumphant, just distant, like I was reading about strangers in a story that no longer concerned me. One night my phone buzzed, a call from my Aunt Frances. I'd blocked her months back, but she'd found a new number to try. I let it roll to voicemail, her attempt fading into background noise. I never listened to it. The calm that came from being free of their expectations washed over me, crisp and clean. I had no regrets. Not for blocking them, not for leaving Charleston, not for choosing myself. Austin was my home now, and I was finally living a life that felt real. One quiet Sunday, I sat by my window, coffee in hand, gazing over Austin, a vibrant patchwork of glass and steel pulsing with opportunity. I leaned back, letting the mug's warmth seep into my fingers. For so long I believed loving my family meant giving up everything. My money, my time, my dreams. I'd emptied myself into their needs, convinced it was duty. But now, in the stillness of this new life, I saw the truth. Loving myself came first. Choosing me wasn't betrayal, it was survival. That clarity carried me from Charleston's weight into Austin's freedom, and I knew I'd never go back. The greatest lesson came gradually, built through restless nights and hard decisions. Setting boundaries wasn't cruelty. It was protection against manipulation and dependency. I'd spent years caught in their cycle, giving until I had nothing left, then being blamed for not giving more. Walking away showed me my value wasn't measured by their expectations. Guarding my peace meant saying no, and that was strength, not weakness. I held that truth close, letting it lead me through this new chapter. Last week my boss called me in. "You're stepping into the senior engineer role," she said, her tone confident and sure. The promotion felt like a quiet victory. One earned through late-night coding and leadership, not family validation. I walked out with a calm pride, the kind that doesn't need applause. My team's respect and my own drive were enough. Austin had given me a chance to create something of my own, and I was flourishing, free from the past. That evening my phone lit up again. A text from Mom through a number I hadn't blocked yet. "We're struggling, but we miss you," she wrote. The message sparked a faint flicker of guilt, but it died quickly. I recognized it for what it was, an attempt to pull me back into the chaos I'd escaped. I didn't answer. Distance wasn't cruelty, it was necessary. I deleted the text, my heartbeat steady. Their struggles were theirs to carry now, and I was done bearing their weight. Why life was here, in this city, in this moment, and I wasn't looking back. To everyone who's followed this journey, thank you. Your time and attention mean more than words can say. Sharing this story hasn't been easy, but knowing you're out there listening makes it worthwhile. I'd love to hear your thoughts, your experiences, your turning points, those moments when you chose freedom too. Leave them below. Let's keep the conversation alive. You've been a part of my healing and I'm deeply grateful. That night I opened my journal, the one I'd started the day I reached Austin. I wrote, I'm not their backup plan anymore. I'm my own. The words felt final, etched in ink and conviction. I closed the notebook, set it on the table and stared out at the city lights. This was my home. My story. My life.